Yes, people, big up yourselves. I hope everyone's good. We are back with another one, and as you've probably seen by the title of the video, today we're going to be talking about the dryness situation with UK Medical. Now, I want to touch on a few things through this video. I think in terms of this topic overall, there is so much misinformation going around and being parroted by someone who doesn't know but thinks they know more than the person they're speaking to. So they parrot that information, and then that person parrots that on and parrots it on. And eventually, something that's completely been taken out of context is being spread by the entire community, and every new patient and their dog and do you know what I mean? Everyone's spreading that same word, and it's not even true. So there's a few things around this I want to talk about. As always, people, everything I say, don't be taking no medical advice, no legal advice, no financial advice or whatever, because I'm some geezer, random geezer on the internet, sat in his car, hitting record on his phone and chatting about his experience. So don't take it as anything other than that, obviously. I'm not a doctor, bro, come on. But that being said, I've got experience that I want to share and talk about, and hopefully you guys have got some as well that you can write in the comments and let me know, so we can all learn together. And that's what I think this is all about. I'm not here sat trying to say, look, I know everything. Do you know what I mean? It's never that. It's never been that. But I do think that some of the stuff that people are talking about is just simply not true. And it's horrible to see, honestly, the amount of people. Firstly, one thing that everyone says, or I get comments of regularly, is all UK medical flower is overly dry, dead and terpless. No, it's not, bro. It's not. It's just not. There is some of it, and can be quite a lot of it can be coming through overly dry, dead, terpless. Like there is a fair amount of it that can come through like that, but there's a fair amount of it that isn't like that, that's coming through sticky, full of terps. Okay, I'm not trying to say it's as fresh as if matey down the road had just chopped it 9-10 weeks ago, hung dry it as a whole plant for a few weeks, cured it for another 6. I'm not trying to say it's going to come exactly like that, but what I'm saying is it put me off going on medical for ages, because there was so many people talking about how much, and I get it, like I say in comments all the time, people saying I'll never bother with UK Medical, it's all over dry. It's just not true. It's just not true, right? There's a lot of it that is, and then there's a lot of it that isn't. And the next thing I want to touch on is when you have that over dry stuff, right, the thing that gets parroted all over the internet, and it does my head in, everyone's saying stick it in a jar of a Boveda. Bro, a Boveda is meant for storage, not rehydration. Like, and I get it, yeah? The person, 9 times out of 10, the person who's saying it has only learned about it recently from someone else who's explained it to them. And they've put a Boveda in with their flower, and it has somewhat brought terps back. But it's not... I'm going to explain what a Boveda does, and how I understand what a Boveda does and what a Hydrostone does, and why one is for one thing and one is for another. So generally, right, when a nug or a bud, whatever, like is drying out, as with anything, right, it dries on the outside first and slowly dries to the inside. Now, the denser the nugs, the longer it's going to take to dry all the way through to the inside. If you've kept them in optimum conditions for a good amount of time, what you'll find is most of that moisture leaves the outside, but the inside is still left with excess moisture. That's where curing comes in, right? So you get dried to they'll put it in a certain humidity, certain temperature, and normally in the dark for the best results. And after some time, that then gets trimmed, that then gets put in jars, or however, maybe grove bags, and cured. Now, the curing process is where the terps proper come out. The way it works is essentially, if you think about the nug as a whole like this, right, it's all dry up until the middle. Right in the middle is where all the moisture is. Those terps are not fully active without that moisture. So all the outside of the nug, all those heads, everything that's there hasn't got that moisture to it. So that's where curing comes in. You throw it all inside a jar or some sort of storage, and the moisture gets drawn out from the center outwards, and then the outside more crispy parts of the nugs become rehydrated, and the moisture is evenly distributed. Now, over time, they'll have to burp the jars, that's why a lot of people use Grove bags, because you don't have to burp them. What I mean by burp is they just open the lid, let it air, get some fresh air in and the old air out. And you do that multiple times, right? It's a process. And if anyone who's done it, they know the process. And there's a lot of people who've never done it telling people, get the dry flower, stick it in a jar with a Boveda. Like, it's the fact that that does something to it is I'll go into that in a second, because I'm going to go off on a tangent there. Basically, what I'm saying is the center of the nug is the most moisture, the outer of the nug has got the least. That cures over time, and what you get is a fully cured, beautifully preserved nug that's at the right temperature, right humidity, kept in that the whole time, normally in the dark as well. Like I say, like a lot of people will use coloured glass jars and stuff to, you know, get less UV in there, because obviously that can volatilize terpenes and other things. Now, basically, over that period, once you get it to a certain point where it's at its optimum, and you can, you know, you've cured it and cured it and cured it, it'll keep getting better to a certain point, and then it gets to its optimum. Then what a lot of people do, if they're not going to be using that flower for a long amount of time, they'll chuck it in with a Boveda. And what the Boveda tends to do is, the actual science behind it, now I'm not a scientist obviously, but from what I understand, it basically puts like a moisture barrier around the nugs, right? So the Boveda provides this moisture barrier that coats the outside of the nug. And essentially, and I've seen this firsthand, you can get buds that are super terpy. They're absolutely, you know, at their best. And you chuck a Boveda in with it once they've cured, and you don't need to burp it no more, and it's all ready to go. And the Boveda keeps everything in there at a certain level of humidity. But the way it does that is by putting this moisture barrier over everything. Now, what will happen is that moisture barrier effectively kind of lowers the smell in the jar over time, and I'm sure there's other people out here who will say the same thing. If you've got something that's top tier and you put a Boveda in with it and you come back in a week, the jar will smell less than it did before. It's because of that terp lock moisture barrier type thing that they've done, which, again, I'm not a scientist, I don't know the ins and outs 100%, but I've seen it firsthand and I know that that's what happens. But then you crack the nug, and oh my days, has it been preserved. It is bang on in the middle, how you'd expect it to be. It's just the outside has just been slightly muted, shall we say, but it's not, it's actually just been preserved. Think of it as like it's encasing it and putting it in something to say, don't change below this humidity level. And if it slightly was to differ, then yes. Now, what people are doing with Bovedas instead on medical is they're getting something that's way too dry, sticking a Boveda in there and expecting the Boveda to transfer the moisture from in the Boveda into the nug. And some of the stuff's coming that dry that will work to a degree, right? But that being said, you're not really rehydrating it, and it's going to take ages to get that moisture in there. And in fact, you're not even going to get it all the way through the nug. It's just not going to work the same. So that nug's dry all the way throughout. All the terps have been mostly volatilized off it anyway. They're not, you know what I mean? There's not much left to it. There's only so much you can do to improve something. But I would say in that, you know, short window of time that you've got to improve it from when you receive it, a Boveda is the worst thing you can do. A hydrostone, on the other hand, you have to be very careful with a hydrostone, but it will chuck moisture into that like you wouldn't believe. So what you would get out of a Boveda, in terms of you put dry flower with a Boveda, even if you went like a really high RH Boveda, you're not going to get that much moisture in it as if you would put it in with a hydrostone. And it would take ages and ages and ages and ages and ages with a Boveda, whereas a hydrostone would take like an hour or two. If you put a hydrostone in for too long, you will absolutely ruin it. You can make it go moldy, because it can go as moist as you like, as when it was fresh on the plant. Not exactly, but near enough. Way into the danger zone of mold. So you want to avoid that. A hydrostone, for those who don't know, it's like a piece of terracotta. You don't need to buy a hydrostone. You can buy raw hydrostones. I've got one. But you can buy you can just get a terracotta broken terracotta pot from your back garden, smash a piece off of it, sand it so it's nice and smooth, it's not sharp on the edges, and stick it in some water for a couple hours, get the moisture. Basically, the water transfers moisture into the hydrostone, then the hydrostone transfers the moisture from that into the nugs. That being said, you can put X amount of moisture into it. You need to keep an eye. It's good to have a hygrometer. If you don't know about a hygrometer, it's like a something that displays the humidity and the temperature in a set area. You can get these, chuck it in the jar with the hydrostone, and you'll go straight way out of that. The safety zone is 55 to 62% relative humidity, or RH. Now, that being said, if you chuck a hydrostone in there, you could be seeing like 85s. So you need to keep an eye on that. And it's all right being at that for a short period of time, but you need to see where the nugs are at, how they're going, right? You'll be very surprised. I've had a few medical bits that have been that far gone that I've had to chuck a hydrostone in. And honestly, sometimes, yes, it rehydrates it, but it's not saving the terps because they're mostly gone. It's been over-dried that much that they're mostly gone. But that being said, you'll save a hell of a lot more of them with the hydrostone than you will trying to do that with a Boveda. The Boveda is meant for storage, people. You're meant to get the bud to a perfect amount of curedness. That's not even a word, but a perfect cure. You're meant to get a perfect cure on it. I think that's the right wording. Get a perfect cure on it. Once you've got that perfect cure, you stick a Boveda in, and it just keeps everything at think of it like when you buy a pair of shoes, right? And they put them little silica gel packs in. It's like an oxygen absorber. It's just like a safety net, like an extra layer to just keep things where they need to be. It's not to rehydrate the bud. So if you think about it, right, the fact that people are doing this with their bud and they're rehydrating it with Bovedas, and they're actually getting improvement. I'm not saying you're not getting improvement, firstly. Yeah, I want to say that. I know people are going to say, listen, I've been putting it in with a Boveda in a jar, and I'm sure it has been getting better. I'm not saying it hasn't, but I'm saying that is not how that could be used as storage at best. Generally, you'll find the Boveda nicking a bit it doesn't nick a bit, but it can give you the illusion that you've lost terps if it's done properly. But you're instead trying to dry your Boveda out to the point where the Bovedas are going rock hard, which you can rehydrate with a hydrostone, by the way, because it's just that all of it is moisture exchange. Essentially, it's water activities, or water activity levels, basically. So it's an exchange between each thing. You're trying to transfer moisture from one thing into this thing. Your Bovedas go dry, you can stick a hydrostone in with them and it will rehydrate the Boveda. The Boveda will come moist again because it takes the hydration, the moisture from the hydrostone. They're excellent. I didn't actually think of that as a use case until I was speaking to my mate about hydrostones. It was a good 6 months back now, I think. But I was speaking to him about them and he was like, oh, I've never thought about using it for bud. I've always only ever used them to rehydrate them Boveda things. And I'm like, yeah, man. You can chuck it in with a bud. Now, old school, people use all sorts of things to transfer that moisture back into bud that's over dry. You know, when it comes to summer periods, the weather's so hot, some of these grows can really struggle. And when the dry struggles, everything through the entire process struggles, and what they're left with is something that's over dry. People would be doing things like lemon peel, orange peel. I've even heard someone putting bread in with the flour. Now, you'd have to be very careful because the amount of moisture in like a fresh slice of Warbies, it could easily mold your flour, but so could a hydrostone. So this is where I'm saying, like, a hydrostone's great, but you have to be super careful. You can easily ruin your flour. You really need to keep your eye on the ball. But that being said, a Boveda it shouldn't be a choice for rehydration. It absolutely, in my opinion, the amount of people saying it now, it's like it's normal. Oh, get the bud, just stick it in with a Boveda. At first, I started doing it on medical, and I don't know why, because I knew better than that, but I did because everyone else was saying it. And I was like, yo, stick it in with a Boveda, you know, give it a week, give it 2 weeks, whatever. Some people saying they don't even touch it unless it's been sat in it with a Boveda for X amount of time. Yo, a Boveda is not, you know, king rehydrator out here. it is a storage solution. And occasionally you could get something. One of my mates years ago used to use it if something was slightly too on the damp side. He'd chuck a Boveda in with it for it to draw the moisture out, because that's what they essentially do. They draw moisture out or put moisture back in. They try and regulate the humidity in an area, a jar or whatever it may be, to a certain level. And a Grove bag is a similar idea. It just doesn't give back as much in the same way. But a Grove bag, for those who don't know, search it up. They're like a curing bag. Basically you put it in there and they'll have certain humidity zones that it sits between 55 to 62 normally. And you know, if you put stuff in there that's around about 55 to 62, it will stay at that. But if you put stuff in there that's 85 RH, it's just gonna go moldy in the Grove bag, because you're expecting too much from the bag at that point. And it's the same with these Bovedas. A lot of people are expecting complete rehydration, and it's just never going to happen. I'm not saying it's not going to improve it, people, but there's so much better ways to do this. And yeah, it's annoying. It annoyed me because, like I said, I even started doing it at first, and after a couple months I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I sticking Bovedas in everything? Like, if you're seeing some of the packs that come from certain brands come with a Boveda in the pack, brilliant, brilliant. That means that they're trying to preserve what they've put in that pack. They don't want to have cured it perfectly. It sits in a pack in the hot temperatures in a storage container for ages, off-gassing, all the terps volatilizing, everything kind of, all the goodness being put into the air in the bag. And then when the bag gets open, you get one whiff of goodness and everything else is gone. They want to put the Boveda in there because they want it to maintain as best as possible. Now, it's not a miracle cure. You could stick it somewhere extremely hot, the Boveda will struggle to cope. One, because it works very slowly, but two, because it's not a miracle. The same way, like I say with Hydrostones, there's no miracle out here. It will throw a crazy amount of moisture into it, but you need to be careful and you need to keep an eye. And if you put too much moisture in, you might end up finding yourself having to put all the nugs out on a table and letting them dry because they're that wet. They're not, one, not usable at that point, which honestly you can really do that with it. I did it with a Kaseki Tokyo push pop, and I put the I put the Hydrostone in with it for a few hours. I come back to it and oh my days, it was about 4 hours. It had gone from extremely dry to, honestly, you could squeeze the nugs originally and they just burst into powder. Afterwards you were squeezing them and they'd sit together in the same position they're at and then slowly expand back out. Brilliant. Now that looks good. However, what I'd say about that one, the terps were already gone. There was, even with doing that rehydration and then curing it afterwards, the terps was a bit improved, a bit, but not massively. It wasn't massively improved. And that's the other thing I want to say is, like, at the end of the day, if this stuff's overly dry, there's only so much you can get back out of it. You cannot miracle cure anything. And if you're gonna do it, I would at least do it properly with a Hydrostone, which is meant for the job, and then store it in with a Boveda afterwards. You know, if you're thinking, oh, the RH is slightly above 62, maybe it's after it's, whilst the Hydrostone's whilst the Hydrostone's in there, the RH is going to be very high. Once you take that out, put it back in a different jar, just the flower itself, stick a hygrometer in there, see what it's like. If it's, you know, just above where it needs to be, what you're trying to do is now redistribute moisture back into the nug from the outside. So the outside of the nugs are going to be the most wet at that point because the Hydrostone's attacking it with moisture, but you're wanting it to then go into the nugs. So unless there's a massive amount there, what you want is you want to avoid putting that Boveda in there if possible, unless it gets to the point where it's perfectly done and it's exactly where you want it, or just above or below that. Do you know what I'm saying? If it's just above or below, the Boveda will take the couple of percentage RH, no problem, and it will be your friend. But yeah, I just think it's important to say, man, there's not so much more I can say on this topic. Like I say, not everything on UK Medical is overly dry, but a lot of it is. And it just, yeah, it's just annoying to see the amount of people say that And then the amount of other people saying, nah, chuck it in with a Boveda for a week. Like, bro, we should not be having to do that for a start. The shit should be coming bang on when it turns up. And it should be relative to price. But anyway, that's another video. We're dealing with what we're dealing with. And we're trying to, you know, make the best of we can out of what we have. So I think that we should do that with the right information, as opposed to misinformation of a Boveda is a rehydration tool. Yeah, man, it's just mad. Like I say, maybe everyone I've known and everything I know and have done in my past with Bovedas, Hydrostones is, you know, maybe someone here is going to come on and say it's wrong. That's fine. Maybe everything I've just said, you're going to say I disagree. But everyone I know who's ever had anything to do with these Bovedas, it has never ever been as like a rehydration tool. Only since getting on medical, and I had to check myself before I wrecked myself when I first started doing it, because I was doing it for a few months, and I just don't bother anymore. If it's something is that bad, I'll rehydrate it with the Hydrostone. But yeah, it's just, and of course jars are the best way to store. But in that being said, you know, the OG, the packaging it comes in is the legal proof, your legal requirement, or whatever it might be. So I feel like for us to have to stick it in a jar with a Boveda, oh mate, I don't know, I keep saying it and it just does me. It's not a cure for dry bud, it's just not. So yeah, please just get yourself a Hydrostone, get yourself a bit of terracotta, whatever it may be, and give it a try if you've not tried it before. On a small amount, don't put loads in because you don't want to ruin it. Keep an eye on it, get a hygrometer. You know, hygrometer, I think I'm saying it right, hygrometer. Yeah, just do your research, people. Don't just listen to some random geezer on the internet, not just me, but anyone else. People are saying this stuff and parroting it round, and it becomes the norm. And before you know, we've got loads of misinformed people telling other misinformed people and misinforming more people, and we just got pure misinformation flying about. And at the end of the day, one, it shouldn't be acceptable that we're getting stuff that's overly dry. But two, if you wanted to rehydrate it, do that. Do you know what I mean? Rather than some madness that we're doing with Bovedas, which are meant for storage. So I hope I've explained it in a way that some of you can understand, or at least to a point where you can go and research it and understand it a little bit more. Because a lot of the time, we don't think with our brains. We just, you know, somebody says, oh, this, and you go, all right, sound, you try it, and you know what, a little bit of terps come back on that one, so fair enough, yeah, it's got a little bit better. And it's like, wow, these Bovedas do something. And I'm saying this myself because I did this at the start of medical. But once you try it with the Hydrostone, it's a completely different ballpark. It's a whole new thing. And again, I just don't know why I went into doing it. But anyway, I did, and I learned, and I'm now sharing that with you guys. So hopefully someone's going to listen to this and they're going to be like, let me try that out. Let me do a bit more research on that. Let me get a bit more understanding on that. And hopefully we can stop some of this misinformation. And hopefully, you know, some of you guys are going to have inputs and you're going to write things below. I'm sure you will. And I'll learn even more. And I'm excited for that part. I can't lie. So if you do have any input, please bang a comment below. Let me know. Also, if you got up to this point in the video, hit a comment in the below with a 420. Just to let me know. Just put 420 in the comments somewhere, or even just comment 420. You don't have to write a comment if you don't want to. Just write 420. Just let me know you got to this point in the video. It'd be great to know how many of you get to the end of these rambles. But yeah, honestly, I appreciate you guys massively. Yeah, as always, I'll catch you in the streams. I'll catch you in the next videos. Big love and appreciation to everyone who shows up, shows support, shows love. A massive shout out to everyone buying the merch as well, because genuinely, I'm sat here in this. I'd never would have thought, but yeah, it's crazy. And it's only happened because you lot pushed me to do it, and you lot have now showed up and showed the support and showed the love. And yeah, it's hugely appreciated, people. Honestly, it really is. I'm going to get back to doing more of these car videos, because these are genuinely one of my favorite videos to film, and they're one that I know a lot of you guys enjoy watching. So yeah, you know how it is. Take no advice from me. I'm sat in a car, hitting record and explaining my experience, but hopefully that's going to help someone out there with their experience, their journey, and inspire them to, you know, go on and do a little bit more research, get a little bit of a better understanding. Fuck's sake. Right, big love, people. I shall see you on the next one. Thank you very much for being here. Take it easy. Peace.